Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately known as IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association, and as part of our efforts to support play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, and these are just conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is Jennifer McCarville. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, Deb. How are you today?
I am good. And so I
Good.
have to tell you, if you're ever in San Antonio, Texas, outside of San Antonio, you must look up the name Marvelously Made,
It's a mouthful.
which it is amazing. You have to go there. I just trust me when I tell you. Jennifer is the founder and executive director of Marvelously Made, the school for young children. It's play focused. It was established in 2010 as a preschool, and since then has expanded to include children through the 8th grade. The school's philosophy is based on child development and brain research, and is a place where children truly learn through play each day. It is the most amazing place. And
Thank
so
you. So kind.
whenever Jennifer comes, I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. And so today she's talking about childhood and having us slow it down some.
Yeah. Yes. What the value and power of a slow education. Yeah.
And some people may go, what? And so I'm so glad she's here to talk to us about that, because it's a problem that
It's a
children are
problem.
facing right now.
Yeah, it's a problem. So thank you so much for having me back. It's so fun
Yes,
to
glad you're
always
here.
so fun to visit with you. But yes, our school is in Helotes, right on the northwest side of San Antonio. And it really is a really precious place for children to get a slow education. And there's actually a movement in education called slow learning. And I refer to it as getting a slow education. And it basically stemmed from the slow food movement. So there was, a slow food movement that really was drawing people to slowing down and eating real foods and, nurturing your body and, letting you have the experience of eating healthy foods. And so I think that was kind of the catalyst for the slow learning movement. And of course, I didn't know much about it when I started the school, but really, what is the slow education movement? It is allowing children the space and time to learn deeply, which is what they do when they play. And so it's about giving them spaces and knowing that when you protect that space for them and you trust that they're driven to learn and they have a stimulating environment that's gentle and just that perfect balance, right? That kind of flow stage where you're challenged, but you're not overwhelmed and you can just get so deeply engaged. And so that's what we do in play-based education, right? We're saying we don't need to force all this information and have them, sit still and, follow directions. And it's about learning. And so it's just this really beautiful thing. And Michael Lehman, for those of us who know Michael Lehman, one of my favorite people in the world, but Michael did this great drawing of a child standing on top of a mountain and the path that it takes from egocentrism going down this path to the community being underneath supporting you while you make your way. But instead of allowing children to take those laps around the mountain and stop and do what they need to do and pick it up and go over here and do what they need to do and just kind of take their slow, appropriate time to grow and develop, the counter drawing was the child being pushed on his belly down the center of the mountain. Like, we don't have time for all of this to happen. Get down there. Get to the place where you are functioning academically, 5 years above, where you're doing something that those of us who don't understand education or development see as learning.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think that the scary part, and I always go back to the neuroscience when um was it the scientist in the crib? Is that what the book was? Way back, and neurons
uh,
in neighborhoods, but
there
wasn't it the
was,
scientist in the crib?
yes, I think that is the name of it. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Which was not a bad title, but
No,
people
no.
who did not understand development thought, oh my God, if they're so smart, they can learn it sooner, right? So, which really
Hmm.
has put us on this path of craziness,
Hmm.
of,
Yeah, it
being
really
really
has.
ready, right? But so it was all the beautiful work, Bruce Perry's work, and
Mm.
all of the beautiful work that really helped us understand how the brain is making those learning connections and the different parts of the brain and what the responsibilities are. And then, unfortunately, people just misinterpreted. Instead of here's what happens, they said, oh, good, now we can just push it down.
Make this happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Hmm.
it just doesn't. It's development. It
Right.
develops.
Well,
And so,
and
yeah, it just drives me crazy.
I know, and the world is so fast paced. We've
Mhm.
gotten to this place where, for all of us, we have to stop and really think about what we're doing to our brains,
Mhm.
because you never don't need time to learn things well. If you're going to be a lifelong learner, which is our goal for children, I mean, that's really something we all share, is we want them to love learning, and we want them to do it for a lifetime, because the world is changing, and we need problem solvers, and we need people who have grit. And, so if we are pushing ourselves and pushing each other and the children all the time to learn more and do more and learn more and do more, we're not going to retain any of that.
No,
It's just like a constant, that cycle, just flipping through your screen and doing the things. And somehow, as life got faster, because, it didn't used to be this fast, you
no.
know, when we were growing up, all the stores were closed on Sunday.
Yeah.
And where I
Yes.
grew up, all the people sat outside on Sundays,
Mm.
because they had usually done stuff on Saturday and run all their errands and played their soccer games or what have you, and you didn't have any sports practice, and you didn't everything was closed on Sunday.
Mhm.
And you had to slow down. And now our society is, you know 24/7 and then some. And
Yeah.
that fast pace of everything that's happened around children somehow ended up happening in education to children,
Mhm.
and there has been no benefit to children at all, and no learning. And really, what children need, right, is to build those strong neuro bridges through experience and trial and error and experience and experience. That's really the only way. And
Mhm.
yet, we worry that they can regurgitate facts, or they can. And I mean, we got to wake up, like, this is not going away. All they have to do is Google if they want to learn the periodic table, or if they want to, if that's something that they want to learn because they need it for their job, they will learn it.
Don't
You
learn
know,
it.
I'm not
I,
saying that we shouldn't learn those academics when the time is right, but to have children memorizing just so we can feel like they're learning, it's
Mhm.
really a disservice to the parents,
Well,
you know?
and anyone who looks at Bloom's revised taxonomy, right? So this is where, it's lower level learning and higher level learning, lower level learning and higher level learning.
Hmm.
And the lowest level is remembering. And,
Yeah.
and so it they have to they have to touch it, feel it, experience it, repeat it over and over to get up to where they can analyze it, and where they can apply it, and where they can create with it. They can't just do that when they remember it. So,
Well,
it
and if they don't care about it, if they're not actively
they're
engaged in
not
it, and there's not an
interested in it.
emotional connection, then it's just going to pass right through anyway.
Mhm.
you know
That's right.
S-
They're
and
not
and in a
interested.
in a slow education, you develop a relationship with experiences. You know,
Mhm.
relationships take time. You develop a relationship with the elements in the world around you. You develop a relationship with reading, a relationship with sand, a relationship with, you know, mathematical thinking.
Mhm.
And you just have a desire that you're born with to
Mhm.
follow that and to tinker with it over and over. So a slow education really has to encourage curiosity and wondering and cultivate confidence because you can try again and again because you've got time, you know? And like I said, all of those things happen in play.
Every single one of them. And when children are able to follow their own interests, they're going to show
Mhm.
you really early on where their strengths are, right? Where so, I always talk about Rod in when we were in Germany, and the kitchen was like this big and the refrigerator was like this big and the stove was like this big, right? Because everything in Europe is much smaller than
Mhm.
what we have in the United States. And I always taught Rod would always want to be in the kitchen, which was this big. And when I was cooking, and I would say, okay, so then I finally just gave him a cupboard that was his cupboard, and it had the Tupperware in it, and it had a couple of pans in there, and then I gave him some spoons. And so while I was over here trying to cook on the hot stove, he was over here in this little tiny kitchen playing in his cupboard where he'd pull
Mhm.
everything out and pound everything. And Rod has always been very musical.
And pots and pans are the perfect drums.
Hello, and he played drums. He was in the drum line.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
He loved it. He was in choir all in middle school and high school. And so, he was already showing me his strengths when he was 14 months old, playing with the pots and pans and the dishes. And he has always been musical, always. I mean, he's brilliant cognitively, but
Right.
his love is music. And so, and it just goes back to Gardner's stuff, right? Gardner's multiple intelligences. Not everybody's going to have every intelligence.
Right.
And so we need to honor the child's intelligences. And the only way we figure that out is by observing.
Observing, observing, observing. Another thing that makes you take your time.
Yeah.
Another thing that makes you say, there's actual value in watching my child. There's so much value in learning who they are as people, and I've got to take my time to do that. I have to say no to go, 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 perform, 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 perform. And oh my gosh, when we wait for those windows of development
Mm,
that are proven scientifically, proven through the research again and again and again, and through our practical experiences in the classrooms, that when you match a child's this expectation and skill and information you're giving them with their developmental windows, they soar. There's so much
just
joy.
for.
You know, we have this huge blessing of having children through third grade in the school for young children. And then our fourth through eighth grade is a little bit of a shift and it's a homeschool hybrid. But early childhood goes through third grade. And the research has shown again and again that by the end of third grade, children level out academically in the areas of language arts and math. So, a child who started reading in kindergarten or started reading in second grade, by the end of third grade, they're they're pretty well aligned. I mean, you're still going to have strong readers and you're going to have some that aren't so strong, right? But for the most part, so we know the research, but people aren't doing it, right? And now
Right.
we're doing it. And it's so
Mhm.
cool. Our primary coordinator, we have a teacher who oversees our three primary classes in those groups. And she and I had our one of our regular meetings last week, and she goes, Jennifer, it's happening. They're all starting to level out. They're all starting to level out. It's such a beautiful thing because each of their timetables for learning has been respected. We've
Mhm.
introduced phonics around the age of 7 with direct instruction. We've done other things, but I mean, really fighting to protect that time to go slow and deep. And then they're confident learners. They have
Mhm.
grit. It's so much easier instead of these kids being expected to read in kindergarten. And
Yeah.
then, in a lot of these schools that they're in, industrial schools, what do we want to call them? I
Yeah.
don't call them traditional schools because traditional schooling was not in these institutions we have children in. So, but whatever you're going to call the modern day schooling systems, they're making them read so young. And then when they're not performing, they're pulling them out and putting them in reading support programs. And then they spend a couple of years in these reading pullout programs so that about second grade, they're starting to click. Well, hello. That's
Hello.
because
That's
by that age,
developmental.
that's when, so we've tortured these children, right? For 2
It made
years,
them hate reading.
hate
They
reading.
hate it.
Yeah.
And
And
they
learning.
like and they feel like there's something wrong with them because they're being
Right.
pulled out
Right.
away from their classmates. And it is, to me, it's just
A
horrific what
grave injustice, I think, to
it
these
is.
children. And
It
so those
is.
of us who we are doing this with IPA and in the programs that we're in, and people who join you on the porch, but we do have to keep going. We have to keep saying this is what should be typical. This is what we should be seeing everywhere. This has been tour season for us at our school, which is crazy that we register kids for school next year in January. I mean, when I started over 30 years ago in early education, we used to register after spring break. That was when, and it made sense, right? It was after
Right?
spring break. You had two and a
Summer's
half months of
coming.
school, summer was
Yeah.
coming. And then we registered. But then, private schools were like, well, if you're going to register after spring break, then we're going to register the first week of March. And then we were going to register in February. It's crazy. So
It's
hopefully it's
crazy.
been January for a long time for in-house. And then we open to the public on February 1st. It's crazy. But anyway, I've been giving tours of the school and meeting families, which is always such a blessing. But I'm saying to them repeatedly, like, what you're looking at here, it does look different. And that's a really concerning fact. This
Mhm.
is what education should look like for young children.
Yes.
It's hard, it's horrible that we're saying this, what is right in honors development and gives them the space and time to learn at their pace and learn deeply
Mhm.
is the unicorn.
Yes. A big unicorn, right?
I
And
mean,
that's why if you're anywhere near, you, you must visit. One of the things that I feel like teachers struggle with is, what do I say to parents if I want to slow down? What do I
mm,
say? What do I say to my director who says, "Why aren't you in circle for 30 minutes? Why aren't you doing flashcards with letters?"
mm.
And I get this from my students who are in college classrooms going to be teachers in the future. Well, I don't want to get in trouble.
Oh yeah, I
Oh,
get it.
it's a huge, it's
It's a
a,
real deal. Hmm.
and so I always take them back to, the code of ethical conduct. Do no harm. What This is harmful. What is
Hmm.
happening to children is harmful. Your role as a professional is to do no harm. And so
Hmm.
sometimes you have to nod your head in the teacher meetings and you have to do this and this, and then you close your door and you do what you know is right.
Hmm.
You have to be the advocate for children and not be so fearful. And,
Hmm.
if you're doing everything that it is appropriate for children at that age, they're going to develop and no one's going to
Oh
question what you're doing.
absolutely. I think the answer there's no easy answer and there's no one clear answer, but I know those educators who are struggling, and I tell you every day I am grateful genuinely that we get to do this work in this place I fought very hard for to create and worked so hard for. And then, to be able to have seen it unfold the way it has, which was never expected. What a blessing. But I do not take it for granted. I know. But what's awesome now is that we're able to have people visit the campus and see, I don't know how to do it. Well, hopefully you'll take away a handful of things that you're like, you can do this on Monday morning. You can
Mm-hmm,
see, once you see it, because
mm-hmm.
we can't see it very many places. So
Right.
once you see it, it makes it a little bit easier and you can
Mm-hmm.
see it be successful. So, but I think what you have to go in with is, like you said, that code of ethics and saying, I can't, it's educational malpractice to
It is.
disrespect the development of the child.
It
And
is.
I really think that that's a phrase we have to start saying. What you are asking me to do is educational malpractice. It's
Mm-hmm.
developmental. malpractice. You know what I mean? Like I have an obligation as an educator who knows the research and knows the development to honor it, or
Yeah.
I'm harming the child. And
Yes.
so, but I think you also have to be more specific. Like how come you're not doing flashcards with something that you asked? So I think that those educators have to know other ways that they are exposing the children to the standards that they're trying to meet, right? Well, I don't
Well,
use flashcards because I know through the brain research and child development, I
mhm,
know that it's going to be much more effective for the children to write letters in a salt tray. And
mhm.
so that's the way I'm accomplishing the same goal, or whatever those things are. List the 5 things they're doing for letter interaction instead of looking at the flashcards that, you know,
And
or use
I
the
think that,
flashcards in a way that make it a game.
yes, but don't use the flashcards. They need it
Don't
hands
use the
on.
flashcards.
Yeah, just don't use
No,
them.
I just say
So,
put them in a basket, and if the
uh-huh,
kids want to play with them, they can play with them.
they're
You
there.
know,
They're
there. Well,
available.
I am using
So
flashcards.
when
They're
you're
right here.
ready, yeah, of course,
Yeah,
they're right
they're
there.
right here.
It's one of the things that I think is really hard. And so before we started taping, I always say, and Lisa Murphy would always say, we should be taping the before and after conversations too, because the outtakes, because
Yeah.
that we really, it's amazing what happens before and after we start the Porch Play Chat. But one of the things Jennifer and I were talking about is it's not school readiness, it's brain readiness. And if you look at it that way, then people begin to question, well, what does that tell us? And then you can go back and you can talk about development. But we
So
have to
good.
change the words that we're using. And the other thing I think that we don't do a good enough job of, but Reggio taught us how, is to make learning visible.
Yeah.
Here's the questions children had. Here's
Mhm.
how we came up with this study that they were interested in exploring. Here's some language sample of the conversations they had with each other about what they were exploring because they were interested in it. Here's some of the drawings they did spontaneously about the study because they were
Mhm.
interested in it. Here's some books that we read because they were interested in that topic. And if you make that learning visible to people, then they begin to go, oh, and if you have to, you tie it to the state standards because
Yeah.
the state standards are pretty accurate. It's at least Pennsylvania's are. I don't
I was
know
gonna
if,
say, depending on the state.
yeah, I was going to say Pennsylvania's. So if you ever need to look up
That's
the
awesome.
Pennsylvania
I'll
early
do
learning
that.
standards, yeah, they're much better. But
That's wonderful.
people are still misinterpreting what the standard says.
Well, and they
And
want a quick way to say we've done this. So if I
yeah,
sit the children down and tell them, da 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 da, da repeat it. Okay, now write it on this worksheet until you cry.
yeah.
Then
Mhm. I can
you've
check that
learned it.
off.
I can check that
Yeah.
box and I can show somebody something that says you learned it. But don't you dare ask me don't you dare ask me in a week or a month.
Right. Because I won't have learned it. I would have done
Right.
because I love you as a teacher and I want to make you happy.
Yeah, I
It's,
want I want
it's
you to love me and I want to do the right thing because I'm made good.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I think sometimes the pressure is also creating, I mean, think how many children are in anxiety and depression
I'm
and
so
on
worried.
medication already. I
I
mean, really.
know. I'm so
And
worried.
that's the do no harm thing because we're
Yeah,
rushing them instead of honoring where they are. And not every 3-year-old is going to be at the same level. You have to honor where they are.
you
You've
do.
you have no idea what they had. And that's a disservice to public school teachers.
I
They are
know.
accountable for what happened to those children before they walked into their door, right?
I
So
know.
if we could just say, as far as measuring development over time and whether or not this teacher is successful, because there are not always great teachers out there, but
No, there aren't.
your accountability should be, here's how I met the child where they were in each domain of development, how I offered them materials and opportunities and play to be able to experience some of those materials, how
Hmm.
once they had picked up that I was able to say, "Oh, I think you're about ready to leap to the next developmental level. Let me see what else I could throw out in the materials to
Yeah.
get more interested," so that you don't assess them based on standardized tests, which are nothing but memorization. You you base a teacher's quality based on what the children knew when they walked in the door and what they knew when they left and how far they developed. And not every third grader is going to be able to read at a third grade level, and they have to just get over that.
Right. And what they've learned that you can measure easily, like the academics, and also what they've developed in, emotionally, socially,
Socially,
that piece,
every
we have to
domain.
be bringing that piece into those assessments
Mhm.
that the state doesn't cover those, but adding that as the educator with the parents. And I think one of the most powerful thing that teachers can do in no matter what setting they're in, and but with their families they work with, is gently throughout the year
Mhm.
give the parents the developmental information to support what you're doing, because
Mhm.
parents want good things for their children,
Of course.
and they are not with them all day. So they feel like, what did you do there? Was it worth me being away from you? I don't have a choice. I want to know everything that you did. And there's just so much that plays into what did they learn, and
Mhm.
they mean, what did they do? And then you show the learning, right? This is what
Yes.
they did. And when they do this, this is what they're developing. And the reason that it's important to develop these skills is because later, when they are reading words on paper in books, they're going to have the eye coordination in order to do that easily. So
Yes.
parents go, oh, like this stage of development, this is what we're looking for, and this is why. So just those little snippets. And my gosh,
Mhm.
these teachers now who, bless their hearts, are having to send them, everybody's using those apps and they're sending pictures of every child to the parents every day. And I think that is crazy.
Crazy.
Um, if you can't be away from your child for that long without a photo of them, you need to stay home and homeschool them. Like, that teacher should not be doing that. That's one point that I just feel really strongly about. The other thing is, instead of doing all of that, take 20 minutes at the end of the day to send a
Mhm.
collage of pictures or whatever you need to do and
Mhm.
explain something they were learning through something they did. And
Exactly.
every snippet of that helps parents understand everyone can breathe easier and have more joy in the journey. And, like you said, you just have to close the door and do the best you can. But
Close the
there's
door.
so much more. Don't give up your power, right? Like, I know that our hands are tied in so many ways in the systems, and but yet don't give up all your power. Even if you're frustrated, don't spend your energy there. Spend it in these other ways if you
Yeah.
can.
And remember that as you watch children develop, it is joyful to see it happen in front of
Mhm.
you, and to know that the experiences and the time and the play that you have given these children is a gift to them. And
Mhm.
teachers won't be frustrated with behavior problems, and
Right.
they won't, you know, parents won't be like called to come pick up their child at school 25 times, or because children are able to follow their interests in a rich environment that supports them, and they have
Mhm.
great relationships. That, I mean,
Mhm.
relationships are the very first thing that you
Absolutely. And they're
develop.
always the very first thing.
Always.
Hmm.
Nothing else will happen unless you have
Yeah,
a relation.
right. And there's nothing more important than the human connection. I mean,
Nothing.
that right there, I am safe here. These teachers like me. And,
Mhm.
sometimes
They
it's
respect
enough
me.
that the teacher loves me and they
Yeah.
respect me,
And they
you
respect
know.
me. The most
Hmm.
important thing for young children, they have to feel like, and they have to feel like they belong there, right? They have to
Yeah.
see images of themselves that look like them, and they have to see, have discussions about things that are like their culture in their home life. And
Mhm.
they have to not celebrate holidays. Oh my God, the amount of time we waste on holidays that are
Yeah.
disrespectful to children drives me crazy.
I know we don't do them.
No,
We don't do
you
them.
have no time for holidays.
Mm-mm.
in your
Yeah,
program?
the only holidays we do here at our school, we are a Christian school, so we do celebrate Christmas. Our primary kids put on a Christmas play for
Hmm.
all the children at school, and it's very gentle. And
Hmm.
some, the first year primary kids are animals, and the second year primary kids are the main people parts, and then the third year they're the crew, and they're the stage crew, and they make the scenery and they make the programs, and so they go through this process of learning all these different things, and they put it on in the morning for the children. Their parents get to
Uh-huh.
come to a performance. Their parents come in the morning. We don't do that like in the evening thing. It's
Right.
very appropriate and very lovely. But other than that, it's funny, we were laughing because the one other thing we do, and I'm not sure why, um, is they're allowed to pass out Valentines for their friends before school. We set bags up outside the classroom, and then on their way home, they pick them up. We never bring them into the classroom. But we're like, why do we do that? But we don't do any other holidays. And I don't have an answer except love's important. So,
Yeah. Love's
but
important,
yeah,
especially now, right?
yeah.
And,
But no, we
and
don't
so,
do the holidays either because
yeah,
it should be a respite. School should be a respite. Those kinds of things you celebrate with your families. And, it's just, yeah, I agree with you.
yeah. And I think it's so funny when in the curriculum and assessment class that we do, which is, curriculum is the child sort of focus, right? The curriculum is the child, so you don't get it in a
Hmm.
box or in the mail or handed to you. Um, the um the thing that is hysterical to me is everybody can tell me what play is because they've had me in child development. So it's child directed, teachers don't interfere, children can go where they want, they stay where they want, they follow their interests, right? So they can tell me all that. Then we have 5 questions that they answer out in the hallway after they've done a daily routine. So
Okay.
6:30 to 6, daily routine. Tell me what's happening in each time frame. So they've just told me what play is. Then they do their daily routine. Then they go out in the hallway and they answer 5 questions. How do children learn? What do children like to do during the preschool day? What do children need to know before they go to kindergarten? What are the hardest times of a teacher's day? And what do children not like to do in the preschool day? And while they're out there doing that, I put up September, October, November, December, January, all the way for 12 months. And when they come in from that, I ask them to write down what might be celebrated in the school for that month, right? So what might the curriculum be for that month? And so they are so industrious, so industrious. And then we sit down and I say, okay, let's say, what do children not like to do during the day? And I take their words and they take their schedule.
Hmm.
I say, put a line through the time where children have to sit and listen to the teacher. And they're like, oh, and they're looking at each other as they're crossing off lines on their piece of paper. Tell me what children have to do when they have to sit and wait. And they're like, oh, they're crossing off lines. And we just go through that and they go, oh my God, I crossed off every line. I said, okay, so you could tell me what play is. You could tell me how children learn. But then this is what you did. So you're not applying it yet. Right. So they have it. They
Hmm.
just haven't been able to apply it. Then we go to the crazy things. And I say, no, 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 through all the holidays. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I,
I think it's a big epiphany when you realize actually they celebrate holidays at home.
yeah,
We don't need to do that here. Like
holidays belong
I
in the
always
family.
one of the things that we love about that position we have on that is that this continues to be a respite for them. This continues to be a place where no matter what else is going on, it is constant, it is predictable, it is gentle, and they have the time to learn deeply and at their own pace. So they can come here and they can decompress. I mean, it is so different. This is our 15th year. And in the, 15 years before that I was in classrooms and teaching, et cetera, the energy during those heavy holiday seasons,
Oh my
end of
goodness.
October, the Christmas
Oh,
times, it
oh,
is so different in this place, in this school, having made that stance. Like when you walk through these doors, it's just going to be normal. It's just going to be continue to be that place of respite for you. And oh, I love it. I love it
I,
so much.
and it's so honoring of the family because
Yeah.
if the family doesn't celebrate those holidays and the child sees other people celebrate those holidays and they may be the only one that doesn't, then they don't feel like they belong. So it's this whole nightmare that we do to children that we really have to. I'm looking at the time saying, oh God, that we could talk for an hour and a half. So
I
at least
know.
once a week. But I think this slowing down, think about slowing down, letting children guide their own development because they will. It's internally driven.
Right. And slow is
Um,
kind of like a four-letter word, right?
yeah,
Slow. Nobody can go slow. We're going fast, fast, fast. So, maybe when you think of it as a slow education is a deep education, it's a lasting education. It's going
mhm,
to, this will stand the test of time for them. Not,
mhm.
don't get the development out of order. Don't
No.
push, don't push them ahead. Don't propel them anywhere. You support them and you give them those challenges
Mhm,
that are going to take them, scaffold that just a little bit. And they're going to take the challenges they're ready for. But
mhm.
stepping back and knowing, and this is something that is one of my mantras with the educators here is I am much more concerned with learning than teaching. If you are
Mhm.
teaching too much, they are not learning. And of course, as they move into these other developmental stages, there's more teacher instruction. It's not longer and it's not, but the third graders have two gathering times where our preschoolers have one. And
Right.
the direct instruction, if we're going to call it that, during that time looks very different, but they all look like community and relationship and joyful learning together so that we enjoy it and it goes deep.
And
So
think how much,
slow, deep education.
yes, slow it down and honor where the child is. Don't try to rush them. And
No. And
that's where we're making big mistakes and why
well, and
children hate school.
the thing too is we know this happens in play. We know that this is the vehicle. Play is the thing and we know it. But as educators, we have to know what it looks like when they're playing. We have to know so we can explain it. And we have an obligation as an advocate for the child to
Yes.
say, we're going to stand here and in my environment, the children are going to do what children are made to do. And
Mhm.
then I'm going to stand in this gap and I'm going to explain to the people on this side why what they're doing is the most valuable thing they can do. We got to know our stuff. We've got to
Yeah.
keep learning. We've got to understand what it means for play to fill those needs of children and to do it well. Because I think some people are, well, we know that it's just play. And we can say,
I
no,
know.
no, it's not
It's
just play. They're
just
learning so
plain.
much.
Yes.
But you've got
And
to really say, in this play, this is what they're learning.
yes,
That's the piece that I think will set us free
you have to be able to describe it and they have to be able to see it, right? So that
and know it.
documentation that you do is so
Mhm.
important and you do it and it's joyful
It is.
because you're seeing all that development instead of rushing kids trying to rush it, which is
Yeah.
making you miserable and then miserable.
And
Okay.
as the educator, you really do see the learning.
You
Things that you
do.
would miss that are so much richer and so much more enjoyable for the child and so honoring for them you give the space to have this slow deep education.
Mhm.
You can see learning and so much more breadth than if you're just checking the list. Okay, you
It's
do
just
that, you do
so
that.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, hang right there while I close this out. To learn more about IPA USA and to find all of the 300-ish Porch Play Chats, go to our website at ipausa.org in that top right-hand corner. Friend us on Instagram, is that right? Follow us on YouTube. And no, I think there's something different on Instagram. So anyway, we're up there. And then all the Porch Play Chats are going on to Spotify. So you'll be able to listen to them on the way to work and on the way back. And you can find all of them on YouTube at the IPA USA channel. Thanks so much for listening. And until next time, keep on playing. Jennifer, wonderful as always.
I love talking to you. You're doing good things.